What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. I'm over at my cousin's house with the Skyline, and in today's video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the coilovers off his car. Currently, he's running some Blitz coilovers that came on the car from Japan. I'm going to take those off, and I'm going to adjust the preload to make the car all the way around, all four corners, have the same preload on it. Why am I doing that? Because 2 weeks ago, I was adjusting the stands on the front, or the height on the front of his car, and I realized that there was no preload on the coil. So today's the day we're gonna do it. So in this video, essentially, I'm going to go ahead and remove each of the front coilover system, set the preload. On the back, however, because you have to go into the remove the back seat and go over the dash to remove the rear ones, I'm going to just go ahead and do it from here. So I'm going to take the wheel off and just remove it from the lower wherever it's bolted onto the chassis, and do the rear while it's still in the car. It's a 17 millimeter nut right here, and remove this little 10 mil that holds the line for the ABS, and then come up here and undo these 214, and then in theory that coil should come right out. So I'm going to demonstrate how this coilover system works. If you remember back in the days, in the early 2000s, or when you didn't have that much money, I know for a fact when I first started messing with cars, I couldn't afford a coilover system like this one that had the adjustability here, and definitely couldn't afford the ones with dampener. So basically back in the day, this was one piece, and all you had, the only adjustment you could do was right here. And that led to a lot of cars you see, they would bounce around a lot. That's because the preload was incorrect. And so what is the preload? The preload is how much tension you create on the spring right here in its natural state at any given time. And you set it and you don't mess with that, right? So Blitz, the manufacturer for this coilover, would recommend a certain preload based on the car you buy it for. So they're going to make a determination based on the weight of your car and what they think an optimal ride should be like, and they'll give that to you in the manual, right? In his case, my cousin, he didn't have the manual. We looked online, we couldn't find the preload. But generally, we found that most people recommend doing 5 millimeter to about 7 or 8 mil should give you good ride quality. So that's what this video is going to show you. How do you adjust it? So let me go back into preload. What is it and how does it work? So the spring right here, per inch, is designed to absorb a certain amount of weight. That means when it hits a hole or a bump, how much will it travel based on the weight of the car before the spring itself become ineffective. Like it's not gonna squish anymore because it's either too loose or too tight. That's what preload is. Here's another thing. Before I make any changes here, I'm gonna measure the current length of the whole setup. So when I do everything, it is gonna change, but I'm gonna set it back to this measurement before I put it on the car. It's sitting at 17 1/8. So I'm gonna write that down here, 17 1/8. So when I'm done, I'm gonna make sure when I do this measurement on the back end, I have that same measurement. So see how I can turn this spring easily like that? That means the preload on this spring is like pretty much non-existent. You shouldn't be able to turn the spring between the top hat and this collar right here. You shouldn't be able to do that. Now, this right here, obviously this is not how you want it to be. So now, in order to set the preload, turn this top ring until I physically cannot turn it anymore with 2 fingers. So as you can see, I can still rotate the spring, and I'm just going to keep turning this top ring. Let me move this one out of the way. So you can see this is the locking ring for this one. So right now I can still turn this one. Now you can see it's not spinning as easy as it was the first time around. So now I'm going to take this second ring and bring it up against this first ring right here. So I'm gonna put this ring here right up against this one, right there. Now, I'm not gonna lock it in place. Now, the next thing is important because now I am going to continue to bring the spring compressed state by turning the top ring until there's a 5 millimeter gap between both of these. This wrench is 5 millimeter. So whenever I can slide this wrench between these two, that's when I'll know I've gotten to 5 mil. So that's the next step, is to keep turning only the top one until I'm able to slide the wrench between both of them. And now it fits between there. So that's about 5 mil. So that's 5 mil, and I'm going to do 2 more turns from about, I would say, 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock. So 9 to 12, that's 1. 2, 3. So that's maybe about 7 mil right there. So I'm gonna put my notes down on the paper. 3 turns, 9 to 12 o'clock. Now you can see the difference between where the top collar is and the locking ring. Now it should be literally impossible for me to turn this spring. So now there's preload. What that means, I have created some compression on the spring. So now the spring will work in its natural state like it should. If the car hits something, it's already in a state where it's ready to absorb that impact, and it's not just wobbling and flopping around in there. So now the next part is to lock this in place. Now that I've done that, essentially I might have messed with the length of this thing. So now I'm gonna measure again. And I started at 17 1/8, and now I'm at 17 3/16. So it shifted a little bit. So we're gonna adjust this to sit at 17 1/8. And that's 17 1/8 right on the money right there. All I'm going to do is lock this back in place. Now this is kind of hard to lock in place because this part is going to want to turn. So I'm going to lock it with my hand, and then when I put it in the car, then I will use the small wrench and lock it in place. And that is how you adjust the preload on your car. The rear side, right? And so all I'm going to do here, in the interest of not having to remove everything up here and everything down here, I am going to just undo these 2 pieces, set the preload. See, it's already turning. You shouldn't do that, right? So this is a perfect example of why we're making the adjustment on this car. You shouldn't be able to do that. So we're going to do the same deal. Again, we're going to do about 7 to 8 mil of preload, and then I am going to measure with my measuring tape between this lower collar and this one right here. And whatever the measurement is right now, when I have gone and done the preload, I'm going to make sure that I have the same distance between here and there. I broke this loose, and so I'm going to separate it. It's the same thing I did on the front suspension. So here again, it's loose, so I'm going to turn it. I'm going to turn it until I can't turn it anymore. But you have to be mindful that this lower sleeve right here will also rotate, because it's not, whoever did the suspension before didn't tighten everything like they're supposed to, and clearly didn't make the adjustments the way it should have been done. So since this part is turning, I'm gonna have to hold it. And while I'm holding it, I'm gonna turn the spring with the same 2 fingers that I did the first one, the front ones with, until I can't turn it tight anymore. And that's about it. So now it still moves, but it's definitely, I can't turn it by hand anymore. So now I'm gonna put the ring up under here, just about snug. And then now I'm going to adjust that up to get that 7 to 8 millimeter of preload. As you can see, this one is moving, and it's starting to create that opening between both of them. right, so now the wrench actually fixed between there. But like I did on the front, I'm gonna do 3 more turns from, basically when I say 9 to 12, I'm gonna put the wrench at the 9 o'clock position on a clock and turn it to where it comes to 12 o'clock position. And I'm gonna do that 3 times, and boom. Now, all I have to do is lock this in place. And then I'm gonna remeasure my distance between here and down here, which was 8 and 1/16. The current measurement is about 8.5, just shy of 8.5. So by me doing the preload, it moved the spring upwards, so it created bigger space between here. So in order to fix that, and that's roughly 8 and 1/16. Well, not roughly, it's exactly 8 and 1/16. And so that's what I have to do now, is undo the nut and bolt here, slide this away from this little, the spindle right here, and then turn this, rotate this piece until it locks up against here. And then I would retain the same distance I had when I started between here and there. Car would be at the same ride height, and that's it. Let's remove it. All right, the bolt, nut and bolt is gone. And now I have to apply some pressure so I can move it away from here, because I'm gonna rotate the sleeve. Then I'll just turn this counterclockwise and lock it in place. And that's it. We just did the preload on this side, adjusted the height a little bit as well. So we're gonna go ahead and call it a wrap. Take the car off the ramp, and then go drive it around a little bit and let the suspension settle. So as far as this video is concerned, you already know what it is. That's a wrap. I'm out.